So for today's video, we're going to be trying out a different format, just something, to test out that I can add to the different categories of videos that I plan to try. Want to talk about 2 to 3 topics of video. As you can see up here, here is the rundown for today's video. I will be talking about the Philadelphia 76ers, who are playing really well without you-know-who. Then we will rap about Scottie Barnes, who is the frontrunner for Rookie of the Year, and also talk about President of Basketball Operations for the Raptors, Masai Ujiri, and how much of a god he is when it comes to drafting players. And then we will close it out with some Golden State Warriors talk, because the Warriors have the best record in the NBA, and it seems like they are shaping up to be a full-blown contender by the end of the season. Timestamps are in the description below if you want to skip around and go to different segments. That's what the purpose of this video is, talking about multiple topics, but if you want to watch the whole video, please feel free to do so. You could do whatever you want. So without further ado, here is the video. So if you don't check the standings or the stats on NBA.com daily, or a website like Cleaning the Glass, you wouldn't have guessed that the #1 offense in the NBA belongs to, that's right, the Philadelphia 76ers, who are now 8-2 after winning a big road game in Chicago against the Bulls, who have been really impressive to start the year. The Sixers beat the Bulls on the road, 3rd game in 4 nights, without Tobias Harris, without Matisse Thybulle, and without you-know-who has been the star of a months-long annoying saga. And so I want to talk about the 76ers without Ben Simmons. This team has been refreshing. I can tell you, as a fan of the team, they are much more enjoyable to watch. It's fun to finally get back to watching this team play basketball, and they have been really impressive, even despite the fact that Joel Embiid's mid-range jumper has sort of gone away from him for a little bit. He's in a little bit of a shooting slump. I expect his mid-range percentages to come back, but he's kind of been playing like shit offensively in terms of shooting the ball. Passing the ball, Embiid has been incredible. He's been improving. His turnovers are down and his assists are up, and it's kind of offense by committee. So the Sixers have a bunch of guards that do a bunch of different things. Tyrese Maxey has taken the next step in his development. He's averaging nearly 15 points a game on high efficiency. He's kind of coming along nicely in his development, and kind of a little bit better than I expected, considering that he just turned 21. Seth Curry continues to be a revelation. I still can't believe that Daryl Morey got Seth Curry for Josh Richardson and the second pick that essentially was Tyler Bay, and sent them to the Dallas Mavericks for Seth Curry, who is not only one of the best value contracts in the NBA, underrated, has been a really good scorer for us. The Sixers have found him in a lot of sets. They're running a lot of plays for him. They like to run the Iverson cut at the top of the key, where he cuts across and Embiid feeds him the ball, or they do the little dribble handoff. Rich Hoffman of The Athletic did a nice, really good piece on Seth Curry and the actions that the Sixers use him in, especially the Iverson cut. But the Sixers offense has been really fun. They're taking a lot more threes this year. Nearly 37% of their shots have come from 3 this year. That is well over the mark that they had last year, where 31.3% of their shots were from 3. The corner threes are down this year, but that's because corner specialist Danny Green has been out with a hamstring injury. He basically made up a lot of the Sixers' corner 3-point attempts last year. That's why they were 12th in the amount of corner threes they took last season. But in terms of everywhere else, the 3-pointers are up. The Sixers have guards who can dribble and get to the basket. They can just do things. They can attack off the dribble. They can attack off the spacing. And not only that, the Sixers upgrading the Mike Scott spot with Georges Niang has been really a revelation offensively. Georges Niang is a, decent passer. He's more of a connecting passer. He's a guy who will move the ball to the next person to see what's open next, and he'll chuck threes without hesitation and will shoot them at 41%, which is something that this team has really needed. Last year, the Sixers tried to get Seth Curry to just chuck a bunch of threes because he was always hesitant. That seems to have gone away now, and Georges Niang is taking more threes, and Furkan Korkmaz has developed into a really nice shooter and a solid defensive player, and they're running a bit more plays for him to show off his passing chops, and he can kind of get to the rim if he runs off of a dribble handoff with Embiid or Andre Drummond. And Andre Drummond, that's the last piece. Andre Drummond has definitely, absolutely has been an upgrade over Dwight Howard. People assumed that Dwight Howard was really good for the Sixers last year. He was really only good for the Sixers for like a month and a half, because there were like 2 to 3 month stretches where Dwight just, to me, he did not play well and was a foul waiting to happen, a technical foul at an inopportune time waiting to happen, or a flagrant foul at an inopportune time waiting to happen, instead of just playing defense. Andre Drummond doesn't really foul. He has quick and active hands, and he can finish the possession off with a defensive rebound. Definitely easily Embiid's best backup to date in his career. And the Sixers now find themselves with just a rotation of solid NBA players. None of them are too spectacular or not underwhelming. They all play their roles, and they're all centered around the megastar that is Joel Embiid. And because of that, the Sixers are 8-2. And a lot of the people that have criticized Daryl Morey for holding on to Simmons too long and they should have gotten rid of him earlier, I'm glad Daryl didn't listen to those guys, because that was just not the course to go. It just wasn't. And if Morey ends up, trading Simmons for a little bit more than he expects, and they get something nice in return, the Sixers could really be cooking with gas here, because it's amazing what happens when you surround Joel Embiid with shooting, spacing, and a few guards who can dribble and get to the rim. None of the players are perfect. Some of the guards, like Shake Milton, I'm not sure if Shake Milton's decent play will continue. I'm not sure if Seth Curry being our go-to scoring option from the perimeter is going to last long. There are games like, the first loss they had against the Brooklyn Nets where the late game offense just fell apart. I'm still scared that's going to rear its ugly head. But for now, credit Doc Rivers, credit the Sixers for shutting out all the noise. Credit the Sixers for winning games with guys in and out of the lineup. Because like I said, Tobias Harris is out. Matisse Thybulle was out in this Bulls game. Furkan Korkmaz was out in the game before. The Sixers are just playing some really good basketball right now. They're middle of the pack defensively, which is to be expected because they've lost some of their defensive personnel, and one big piece has decided to just hold out and not show up. But the Sixers are playing some really good basketball right now. They are still one of the really good teams in the Eastern Conference, and as long as they have Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid had a great game against the Bulls on Saturday. The Sixers were playing this well with Joel Embiid shooting like shit offensively, and then this time around in this Bulls game, Embiid was back. If the Sixers keep finding ways to win like this is going to bode well for the long haul, especially because this is definitely not going to be the team, I imagine, that's going to roll into the playoffs by the time May, April comes around. It's looking like we're going to have another really good draft class. The 2021 draft class has been showing out so far. And through 10 games, there's definitely a definitive first team all rookie to me. There's definitely 5 rookies that have stood out. Some of the top ones haven't played or aren't playing well right now, so there can definitely be more added to this list. And there's other guys like Davion Mitchell of the Sacramento Kings, etc., that are in the rotation and contributing. This class is just deep altogether, but headlined by this rookie class is none other than the 4th overall pick in this past draft of the Toronto Raptors, Scottie Barnes out of Florida State. Now, Scottie Barnes was sort of polarizing. He was one of those guys, it seems like, in the draft community that was polarizing in the sense that he couldn't shoot, but he was big, he was long, had a big wingspan, was a great passer, high basketball IQ guy, but the problem was he couldn't shoot. And given what we saw from you-know-who in the playoffs, these past playoffs, it kind of poisoned the well a little bit for that archetype of player. But Scottie Barnes so far has just showed out. He's arguably, if you don't count OG Anunoby, has been the Raptors' best player, arguably. It's definitely between OG, Fred VanVleet, and Scottie Barnes, but to me, Scottie Barnes and OG. Scottie Barnes so far is averaging nearly 18 points a game, 9 rebounds a game, and over 2 assists per game. And it doesn't even feel like that stat line sort of encapsulates how well he has been playing. He just plays with this infectious energy, and he's been a willing shooter. He's coming off of picks when the defender is sagging way below the pick, and he is walking into these 12 to 15 footers that he's just comfortable taking, and it looks like he has decent touch on them. I don't know how good his shot's going to be, but he doesn't seem like a kid that's going to shy away from his weakness, and it seems like he's going to be working on that weakness for the rest of his career until he perfects it. He just seems to love the game that much, but this guy is only 20 years old, and this continues to show that president of basketball operations, Masai Ujiri, is a god when it comes to selecting his scouting department to enable him to hit on all these draft picks, putting the right people around him. Just all full credit to Masai Ujiri and his front office for these draft picks, because not only has Scottie Barnes been the rookie of the year to me so far, and Evan Mobley's been a close second behind him, he also got Banton out of the second round, hometown kid from the Raptors. He's getting big rotational minutes and sort of falls into the archetype that Ujiri likes, which is big, long-limbed players that can do a bunch of different things on the basketball court. Banton can play defense. He plays hard. He can push the ball in transition. He can cut. It's just smart drafting, smart evaluation of talent, and Ujiri has once again hit on this next crop of drafts for his franchise. And I think Scottie Barnes is going to be way more better than he is right now. He could defend multiple positions. We saw in the Raptors-Nets game that he was just, there were possessions where he was taking it to Kevin Durant and James Harden on the defensive end, at least competing, in some cases taking the ball from them. I really like this kid. This kid has an infectious energy and vibe about him. When you get a player like Scottie, who a lot of people thought had all the upside in the world but had certain limitations that might have prevented him from reaching that upside, if you get that type of player into an organization like the Toronto Raptors, where they have one of the best president of basketball operations in the NBA, and they have a top 2 coach in basketball in Nick Nurse, that is a great place to incubate somebody like Scottie Barnes and to turn them into the type of player that they hope he can be one day. Because now Pascal Siakam is going to be back in the fold. He was back against the Nets today. It's a really exciting future if you're a Raptors fan, considering that you're hitting on all these draft picks and you have a certain archetype of player that you just keep hitting on. I mean, Siakam, Anunoby, you trade for Precious Achiuwa, who, can be frustrating at times as a player, but he's somebody else who can, take the ball off the glass and go up court or advance it and run the floor. He's a really awesome athlete. He plays hard. And then, of course, you find Chris Boucher. He emerges last year. The Raptors just have a lot of good players, and they have a lot of good players that fit the kind of philosophy that they seem to want to achieve. So Scottie Barnes and this entire rookie class so far has been really impressive, but I wanted to talk about Scottie Barnes first because to me, he's the front runner for Rookie of the Year, and Masai Ujiri should take a standing ovation because they really hit on the Scottie Barnes pick. Coming in at 8-1 and sporting the best record in the NBA right now is the Golden State Warriors. Now, if you guys watched my video that I released back in August, I had the Warriors as a dark horse contender, and I listed all the things that, needed to go right for the Warriors to kind of break through into that contender status. But early on in the season, I think it's safe to say that this team is clearly the best team in the West so far this year. At least through the first 10 games of the season, they have been the best team in the West, and I don't think it's been close. Utah is second, and then there is a gap between them and then all the other teams in the West. But the Golden State Warriors are back up on top of the West once again in a very familiar position that we have seen with this team during their Golden Age era. And now that the pillars of that dynasty run, Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Andre Iguodala, who is now back with the team, with a mix of young guys, veterans who are kind of young, and rookies and minimum contract guys, this team is already gelling and coalescing. The free agency signings have worked out to a T. Nemanja Bjelica is a crucial bench player for the Warriors because he is one of the only bigs on the bench that can shoot and pass and handle the ball a little bit. And then, of course, Bjelica mixed with Draymond Green in some lineups is just lethal. So here are some numbers for the Warriors when it comes to making their case as a contender this year. They are putting up numbers that are similar sort of to their dynasty years. Those Warriors teams were always at the top in terms of assists per game, leading the league by sometimes 2 to 3 assists per game to the next person in second place. And so right now they're first in the NBA at 30.2 assists per game. They are first by nearly 2.5 assists per game. The ball movement is back. There is shooting everywhere with Bjelica, Otto Porter, of course Steph. Then you got Jordan Poole, who has regained his shooting stroke after kind of starting out slow to start the regular season. He's found his preseason shooting form, scored 25 last night against the Rockets, scored 31 against the Pelicans, and then 26 against the Hornets. And of course, you got Damian Lee coming off the bench. You got passers everywhere mixed in with Draymond, Steph, Bjelica, Juan Toscano-Anderson. Jordan Poole can even play make a little bit. This team is just very deep. So not only are they first in assists, they're third in three-point attempts, which with all the shooters that the Warriors have attempting that many threes, that offense is just going to be efficient, and it pertains to ball movement. There's cuts everywhere, and like those Warriors dynasty teams, of course, they're top 10 in turnovers still, but that's going to come with how often the Warriors move the ball. But they're first in three-point makes at 16 a game, and it's pretty clear that they're in first place. There's like a clear margin from first to second. But here is the kicker. So they are 7th in offense right now per cleaning the glass. I really feel like their offense hasn't really even gotten rolling yet because Stephen Curry is not shooting anywhere near his standards from last year or in years past. I think this new team is still trying to figure each other out, which is the scary fucking thing, is that there's a lot of room for improvement. This offense is 7th right now. They already have the defense down. They are clearly first in defensive rating per cleaning the glass. They lead the league in defensive rating by a mile so far. Draymond Green is anchoring everything, and of course he's still doing his usual facilitating. Yesterday, once again, he stopped a 3-on-1 Rockets fast break all by himself because Draymond is one of the smartest defenders ever. There's just a lot of familiar ingredients in this dish that we are being served this season from the Golden State Warriors, you know, to bring it full circle with a bad food metaphor. And to top it off, they're finishing off the defensive possessions with the defensive rebound. They lead the league in defensive rebounding at 39.8 per game, 3rd in total rebounds per game. This Warriors team just does a lot of good stuff. I mean, they're finding minimum contract guys. Gary Payton II finally has an NBA team. Look, say what you want about his offensive game. Yes, it's rough, but this dude knows how to defend. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA on a permanent basis. He needed to get time, but you could see the impact he has made defensively. He's just a hound dog on that end of the floor, athletic as all hell. And now you see in these last 3 games that the Warriors are making use of him, even as a roll man to the basket, you know, throwing up lobs and all of that. By the way, Klay Thompson isn't even back yet. And even if I remember in my video I said if Klay Thompson is like 80, 75% of what he was, that would be great for the Warriors. Klay Thompson can be 60% for the rest of this season, for all I care. If you add Klay Thompson to this mix and how the Warriors are playing right now, we're getting to some scary hours for the NBA because the Warriors are still clearly trying to figure stuff out. Stephen Curry hasn't even gotten in his groove yet. He's shooting under 40% from 3 this year and is shooting 42% from the field. There's no way that's going to keep up. But with the way the Warriors are playing right now, given all the circumstances, by the way, the rookies that I mentioned in that video way back in August, Moses Moody hasn't even popped yet. Jonathan Kuminga is way on the end of the bench and is only getting in during garbage time. There's a lot of stuff going right for the Warriors that even I didn't mention in the video that I did. Right now, it's between the Warriors, the Heat, and the Philadelphia 76ers, who have been playing some of the best brand of basketball so far this season. There are a few others mixed in there, but to me, those are the 3 teams that stick out, and the Warriors are clearly at the top. And by the end of this season, we might see the Warriors come out of the West. And I don't even think it's like a puncher's chance or like a cute, well, in an alternate universe, the Warriors can make it to the finals. No, this team is a legitimate contender. And when they get all their pieces back and really get rolling and figuring out the chemistry fully playing together, and they already look good right now, it's scary town.